Hello, my name is Italo and I'm 35 years old. Although I've always been skeptical about the supernatural, I recently had an experience that changed my perspective. In 2020, during the pandemic, a colleague of mine and I witnessed a strange animal, completely different from anything I had ever seen before. I live in San Antonio, and work for an outsourced company that provides services to the electricity company in the state of Bahia. In February of that year, there was a rainy day, but in the afternoon, the sky cleared up and it didn't rain anymore. However, the incidents continued to come in, and one of them happened during the night. The call was to restore power supply to a village called San Miguel. My colleague Tulio and I arrived at the location around 9 p.m. The problem was a broken crossarm on a pole that was located inside a forest, about 3 kilometers from the main road. We entered a trail in the forest and arrived at the location where the power poles were. When we arrived, we parked the car and realized that it was just a broken crossarm, which would be easy to fix. But before turning on the light, we began to hear a loud noise coming from the forest. It was as if someone was chopping trees with an axe. Tulio, who always believed in the supernatural, was terrified and said that it was a marmot. I, who was previously skeptical, said that those sounds probably had a logical explanation, such as the wind blowing a tree or someone illegally cutting wood. We continued with our task and restored the power supply to the village. However, the sounds persisted. Curious, I decided to find out where those noises were coming from. So, I went further down the trail. We drove about 1 kilometer, but I didn't find any sign of truck tires or other vehicles. I ruled out the possibility of someone cutting wood since it was the only way to get there. As I didn't find any evidence of someone cutting wood, I stopped the car and tried to maneuver on the trail. It was no use to continue, but unfortunately, one of the tires sank. When I looked at Tulio, he stared at me with intense anger because he was convinced that we were dealing with something supernatural. Now, we were stuck there with no help in sight. So, I got out of the car and cut some pieces of wood to put under the rear tire of the car and firm up the ground so that we could get the vehicle unstuck. I picked up the axe and started to cut a small tree on the edge of the trail. Every blow I gave seemed like someone or something was responding from the forest. I got scared, and Tulio was trembling and almost crying. However, we needed to solve the problem, so we put some pieces of wood under the tire. I got in the car, and Tulio stayed outside, guiding me. That's when we heard a scream so terrifying that my heart froze. I had never heard anything so scary before. I don't know how to describe the sound I heard that night, but to give you an idea, it was like a hoarse scream of a person, only much deeper and louder. Then we heard noises as if trees were breaking. Fortunately, we managed to get the car unstuck and put the tools in the trunk. When we were about to leave, the creature revealed itself to us, and what we saw was not pleasant. It was a large, hairy creature, similar to a monkey, but taller and thinner. I believe it was about 2 meters tall. It jumped out of the bushes and stood a few meters from the car, in front of us. I didn't react, I was immobile. For a few moments, I lost the ability to move, as if I were paralyzed by fear. I hoped it wouldn't attack us. We hoped that the car could protect us from such an animal. We noticed that it had some intelligence, as it held a piece of wood in its right hand, probably a tree branch. Then we understood that it was him who was hitting the trees all the time. Even today, I don't know why he made that sound. I don't know if it was a call to others of his kind or if he really wanted to knock down a tree. The important thing was that I was very afraid of that being attacking us. I looked to the side and saw Tulio bowing down and starting to pray quietly. The strangest thing was that, a few meters away from us, the features of that creature were similar to those of a human being. For a few seconds, I wondered if it could be someone in a costume, but then it approached slowly and stood less than 2 meters from the car. The headlights and high beams didn't seem to bother it, as it looked at us as if it wanted to say something. I don't know what came over me, but on instinct I honked the horn, producing a loud noise. But the creature didn't leave, and even let out another, even more horrifying scream. I thought it was the end, so I stepped on the accelerator, but inexplicably, that animal leapt and disappeared into the underbrush. I kept driving, but due to the wet terrain, I had to keep my speed under control. Tulio beside me kept saying to get out of that situation, and that was exactly what I was trying to do. But the worst part was that animal, whatever it was, kept chasing after the car until we reached the road. At that moment, I heard a noise similar to what the creature was producing, and suddenly, it stopped and stood there on the trail watching us, as if allowing us to get away. From that moment on, Tulio and I didn't speak a word until we reached the town. We were both in shock. When we finally arrived in Santo Antonio, I breathed a sigh of relief and started crying tears of joy for having survived that forest. I believe the creature had no intention of harming us, as it would have been easy to attack. I think its goal was just to scare us away. I'm not sure if the place hides some mystery or if it was just a nomadic creature passing by. My friend believes it was the legendary creature known as Pai de Mata, but personally, I think it could be some genetically modified animal or something like that. My wife has a different opinion from me and Tulio and believes it could be an extraterrestrial creature. Anyway, all I know is that something was chasing me, and I know that there are still many unknown things in the world, like what we witnessed on that path where there would be no help if we needed it.